This building over here is, it used to be the Mossel Bay Boating Company. They owned the harbour, basically. So railways later on, they bought it from the Mossel Bay Boating Company. But everything that happened in the harbour, it was their business. The story with the tower is there was a clock up there, but it didn't tell the time. It just counted off seconds. The reason for that being, if there's a ship in the harbour and it gets loaded or offloaded, it was someone's job to come and stand outside here and count how long it takes for that ship to get loaded or offloaded. And based on that, it was the ship's docking fee. That's how they charged the ships. Mossel Bay actually for a long time had no indication of time whatsoever. The market used to sound a bell more or less 7 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then 6 o'clock at night. But it also sounded a bell when the market started, or if there's a meeting, or if there's a fire. So when the bell rang, you didn't know, should you set your watch or should you run? You didn't know. Luckily, they got a clock by the Dutch Reformed Church at great expense, but at least everybody could know what the time is. We'll just be walking around the corner and I'll show you something there. Another thing that we walk by frequently or drive by frequently, and we don't even see it. A lot of the locals, they also don't know it's here. Here we have original stained glass paintings on top of the windows. Those are 120 years old, painted originally by hand, and they're still here on the building. It's very nice to see, especially during the day when the sun is bright. Beautiful detail. It's a depiction of a scene on the River Thames in Britain. Right, so here we have, at the moment, it's the Rudd Art Gallery. It's an art gallery, but originally this was the old jail, the first jail of Mossel Bay, built in 1861. Quite a couple of times people asked me, why is it built in between the houses? When this was built in 1861, there were no houses here. This was the outside of town. So that's why the jail was built here. In Mossel Bay, the crime rate has always been very low. Reason being, especially during those times, people stayed relatively close to each other and everybody knew each other's business. So you couldn't really get away with something. And if you tried something, the people would sort you out themselves. So the police's hands were not really full at any stage. They even had a magistrate's, they didn't have a magistrate's office for a long time. They had a traveling magistrate going from town to town, and then he hears the cases and gives sentences. And a lot of the times, the magistrate would come to Mossel Bay and there'll be no cases for him. That's how low the crime rate was. Either way, the jail had 2 cells. One was used for offenders, and the second one, because it was never used, they started using as a medical emergency operating theater. So if you had to get an operation, you had to go to jail, right? The reason for that being, remember I said there was this 3-vote, 1-vote system between the higher class and the lower class. Now, if you are a higher class citizen and you are sick, you go to the doctor, or the doctor comes to your house. That's why we still refer to who is your house doctor. But you couldn't be seen in a hospital. That was damaging to your status. So according to the people who made the decisions, they didn't need a doctor. They didn't need a hospital until there was just too many people in town, and eventually they had to build a hospital. They only got a hospital in 1903. That's 52 years after the municipality has started. That's a long time not to have a hospital. So during the Anglo-British War, the Anglo-Boer War, this became a military hospital for the British soldiers. And then after that, in 1918, it became an isolation hospital for the Spanish flu. There was actually an isolation hospital way before that, back in 1889, but you couldn't really call it a hospital. It was more like a wooden hut. It was about where we're standing now, about 150 meters towards the ocean side. It was called the Lazaretto. In Italian, it has reference to leprosy, isolated out of town. The reason for that being, look, we just came out of a pandemic, an epidemic with COVID. But back then, an epidemic in Mossel Bay was a real threat because everybody stayed close to each other, and you have these unhygienic gutters running through town as well. So it happened in 1889. There was a ship docking in the harbour, and they started offloading, and the rumor came out that one of the sailors has the pox. Now, the whole town was in a massive state of panic. That ship stayed in the harbour for 14 days in isolation, and in that time, they ordered someone to build this isolation hospital, this wooden hut. He had a week and a half to build it, and every day after that, they would, if he didn't finish it, they would fine him £2. So he made sure he finished the hospital. And then they ordered vaccines from Cape Town as well. When it got here, they gave the sailors some treatment, and he went out of Mossel Bay without the pox spreading. Interesting how they spread the vaccines was there was no mass production at that stage. So they only got a little bit of vaccines to vaccinate the whole town with. So what they did was they injected the children first, 8 years and younger. After a week, those same children would return, and they would draw blood from the arm and inject that into the rest of the family. That's how they stretched the vaccines that they had. They had to think out of the box. There was another one, actually, the Black Plague, the bubonic plague. The spreader of the bubonic plague is rats, and this is a harbour town. There's a lot of them. That broke out in 1901, and the plan that the municipality came up with was to tell the residents, for each rat that you bring us, we'll give you 3 pennies, and then the municipality would burn the rats. So in the first 2 months, February, March, the residents brought in 4,050 rats. But that's how they controlled the disease, is by getting rid of the carriers of the disease. Just interesting how they worked around stuff. We'll be going just around the corner towards the old police station, which was just behind the jail. Right behind me was the police station, which was at the back of the jail. You'll see there's a little dip in the wall there. Just behind that wall was the quad of the police station. That's where they do their drilling in the morning and announcements. Now, back in 1887, they found the body of a young girl in the Dutch Reformed Church's garden, 7 years old, raped and murdered. Somebody hit her with a rock over the head. Now, for Mossel Bay, where petty theft wasn't even a thing, all of a sudden the town was sitting with this. And the town was outraged. They wanted to find the guy who did it, and they wanted to kill him themselves. The little girl's name was Louise Ann Delbridge. Her family came from Cornwall in England. Her dad was a stonemason. He helped build the Anglican church. She was on her way back to school. And then the town went on a manhunt. They wanted to find the guy who killed her. Then 2 days later, the police found him on an eyewitness account, and he confessed himself. His name was William Matfield, 27 years old, 4 children of his own, married. And he was a shoemaker. He worked for Charles Searle, the owner of Searle's Manor, the one I talked about. And also he was the son of the owners of the Rose and Crown Hotel. It was respected people in town, and their son did this. So it was more like extra heavyweight on this already heavy thing. So they arrested him. They put him in jail. The town tried to break into jail twice to kill him, unsuccessfully. And on the 22nd of March, 1888, just behind this wall at 8 o'clock in the morning, he was the first and also the last person to be executed in Mossel Bay. He was hanged. A very dark day for the town itself. They wanted to be present here. The officers, they were afraid chaos would break out because they felt so strongly about this. So the closest they could come was, if you look to your left-hand side, you'll see a stop street. That's where they could stand and watch. In my opinion, a better view, because you can actually see in the quad. And here you're just looking at a wall. But they did execute him. Also, early that morning, they took all of the children in town and put them on a ship. And this ship took them for a trip around the island, just so that the children wouldn't be here while the execution was happening. Very dark day for the town itself. We'll go up the hill again, and we'll meet for the next point.